Joe.
All right. Thank you, Kaylee, for the update. Meanwhile, the Senate is expected to vote tomorrow on a bill that would link $15 billion in disaster aid with the deal that was struck by President Trump and Democrats to raise the debt limit and keep the government open until mid-December. Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell introduced the bill last night. McConnell announced the support for the plan following the surprise announcement by Democrats that President Trump backed a request that any deadline for extending the debt ceiling line up with the short-term spending package. And now Republicans wanted a longer deal on the debt limit, 18 months through the midterm elections. For more on this, let's bring in Congressman Steny Hoyer of Maryland, House Minority Whip and second-ranking Democratic leader in the House. How did you see yesterday, Leader Hoyer? It's enemy of my enemy is my friend, or you know, I mentioned earlier that a lot of the liberal websites immediately said Trump caved, total defeat handed to him by the Democrats. Do you think that's the way that this should be put? I mean, that's not very nice. When you finally get something that you want, you get some bipartisanship, and you immediately, you know, cast it that way. How do you cast it?
Well, when you say they, I'm not sure they is us. I'm not sure who.
Oh, I use that all the time. Yeah,
I know you do. Yeah, the broad brush. Exactly. But in any event, I was surprised. You asked me what my reaction was. I was surprised. Clearly, the Republican leadership in both the House and the Senate wanted to do an 18-month extension on the debt limit so that they would not have to have another vote on it before next November's election. And that's what I expected to happen. It didn't happen. Both Leader Pelosi and Leader Schumer suggested that the debt limit be coterminous with the CR. And that's apparently the president, I was not at the meeting, but apparently the president said, well, yeah, I'm sure that makes sense, and did it, much to, I think, the chagrin of Senator McConnell and Speaker Ryan. I was, again, not in the room, but I garner from the press reports that both of them were surprised and not happy.
Well, were you gratified, Leader Hoyer? Well, I mean, does it indicate that you can work with President Trump on tax reform?
I don't know whether that's the case or not. With President Trump, you take it one day at a time, as we know. But I think on this issue, he apparently thought that the proposal made by Pelosi and Schumer made sense, that we address the two issues at the same time in December. I think it's going to complicate the issue. And very frankly, the debt limit extension, interestingly enough, will not end in December, because they will again have available to them extraordinary circumstances, so it could go into late January or February in terms of when the debt limit extension has to be acted upon. Having said that, frankly, I think the debt limit extension vote is a phony vote. America incurs bills. The premise is that America will pay its bills. The debt limit is sort of a phony process where we beat our chests and say, well, we're going to withhold spending. We don't. The debt goes up, and we extend the debt because the global economy depends upon America's creditworthiness. But having said that, the CR will come up in December. It ends December 8th, as you know. In addition to that, the Harvey relief will be on the bill, and this is something that we need to do. It's interesting that it's expanded about twofold from the House to the Senate. It went at about 7.8, 7.9 to the Senate. It's coming back at somewhere in the neighborhood of 15. So we'll see what some folks who said when you add extra money they couldn't support Sandy relief. We'll see whether they support this relief. You know,
we watch how politics works lately, Leader, and when one party gets leverage, I guess all is fair in love and war, right? Was there a sense of glee yesterday that the Democrats now have more leverage for December? And will Democrats use that leverage to extract what they see as their agenda in whatever the negotiations are? Is it going to be much uglier? That's what the Journal thinks.
Well, I think it may be. I hope not. But let me say this: the Democrats are not euphoric today. One of the reasons we're not euphoric is because earlier this week, 800,000 people, young people, were put at risk by the Attorney General, apparently at the request of the President, saying that they were not going to pursue DACA. The children of America, really, who came here at a very early age. It is interesting that even Rush Limbaugh said yesterday or the day before, nobody wants to kick these children out of America.
Although, Congressman, look, the president has said he'd like to see Congress act on that. Is that
that's
something
correct.
that can happen in the next 6 months?
And that's the good news.
Yeah.
The president said, look, we have to act on this. And he said, quote, we have no choice. Obviously, Senator Graham, Senator Rubio, Senator Hatch have spoken out on behalf of this. So we have a lot of very significant Republican leaders who have spoken out on this. Speaker Ryan has spoken out on this. I am very hopeful, and I'll be euphoric, or happy at least, when we come to an agreement in the next, hopefully, few weeks. Not wait the 6 months, not keep people in limbo for 6 months, not keep the economy in limbo for 6 months. The business community has overwhelmingly, Chamber of Commerce, high-tech companies overwhelmingly come out and said, this is bad policy, and we need to extend and give permanent relief to children who were brought here as children through no conscious effort on their own.
But Leader Hort, would you have preferred that the executive order be maintained? You saw what happened with the other one in the court system with the $4 million. You can't see that was not constitutional, probably. The president admitted it, President Obama, when he signed it, that he really didn't have the authority. Would you have rather maintained the status quo, or secretly, do you believe that if you get some legislation that is actually a better place to be when it's all said and done? I mean, I hear a lot of carping, but did anyone want to keep the status quo that was so tenuous and not permanent?
We didn't have to take action. The president didn't have to take action. He could have asked for legislative action. Certainly, we all agree that legislative action giving certainty to these 800,000 plus young people who are 90% of them working in our economy and paying taxes.
But now it has to happen. That wouldn't have put any urgency on it if it did it. And you guys had a chance to do it in the first 2 years of the Obama presidency, when you had the House, the Senate, and the like, and then you didn't do anything with immigration. You did Obamacare.
But it's not, we didn't, the Dreamers bill passed the House of Representatives. You're right, it didn't pass the Senate, but it passed the House of Representatives, so we did do something. The House did its job. When I was the majority leader, we sent a bill over there. Having said that, I think you're right. I mean, the glass is half full in the sense that the president says we have to deal with it. He's given a 6-month framework in which to do it.
Could work
from that standpoint, it may, and I hope it does. But I think the earlier we act, particularly in light of the overwhelming numbers, 84% of Democrats, 70+% of independents, 60+% of Republicans all believe, as Rush Limbaugh said, nobody wants to kick these kids out of the country, and we need to give them some sense of stability and assurance that they're not going to be kicked out of the country. This is the country they know. They grew up here. They went to school here. They speak this language, and they're working in the economy. And as a matter of fact, to kick them out, people say it's going to be about a $400 billion plus hit on the economy over 10 years. So the smart thing to do, and I was glad, you're right, that President Trump said, look, we have no choice. We need to work on this. He said, I love these children, and if that's the case, we're going to act positively. I'm going to be urging Leader McCarthy and Speaker Ryan to bring a bill to the floor, the Dreamer bill, to the floor as soon as possible so that the Congress can pass legislation to give certainty. I believe the majority of votes are on the House floor, and Senator Graham said he believes the votes are on the Senate floor.
I am just can't wait to see when this tax reform is up, and you and a lot of Democrats say, you know what? I remember President Trump with Harvey and the debt ceiling. Let's go ahead and do this bipartisan thing and work together on it. And you think back and remember how that worked yesterday.
The problem will not be with Democrats working on a bipartisan basis. Well, no, hold on. When did we last pass it? 1986. Who was President of the United States? Ronald Reagan. Who was in charge of the Congress of the United States? Democrats.
Well, those are, do you remember those? Nothing seems similar to those days now.
I think you're right on that. I think that's unfortunate, but I think you're right. But the fact of the matter is, let me say this. We need tax reform. We're for tax reform. What we don't need is tax cuts that are not paid for, that pushes this country deeper in debt and passes the cost along to our children.
Okay. All right. Congressman, thank you.
Thank you.
All right. We will we'll see you again soon, I'm sure, and look forward to it.